the lecture story. Yeah. Because in the riot report tape, an analysis of the rebellion, I highly recommend you get that tape. That's a 4.5-hour analysis of the rebellion. I did it in Washington, D.C. I did a video version of the lecture here in Long Beach. It's on videotape for $40. Both of them are high-quality Copley work. The main thing about it is a discussion that's about Cecil Murray within the dialogue. And even last week when we talked about the intelligence community, we talked about how the intelligence community used Cecil Murray to replace the Jesse Jackson figure who usually shows up to ventilate the people. And that Operation Cool Down was preconceived at least 30 days prior to the rebellion to put 2,000 to 5,000 black men in the streets to cool it down. And we have a project going on all over the country called Project Freeze Frame. Think about this. We're going to do it here in L.A. I got a whole garage full of papers, even though I have most of these same papers from Washington of your rebellion. We got Operation Freeze Frame. What it is around the country, we believe that if we take the names of all of the people who, when the stuff started, asked for the stuff to stop. This is a formula. Whoever went out and said, please no violence, we need their name, and we need their name computated. We need to know who it is will show up when the heat comes. Now, why would I, for someone who I claim I never liked, jump out and ask to relieve the pressure off of them? No, don't hurt them. In the riot report tape, you hear me talk about Francis Wells Welsing, who in Washington, D.C., went right on the radio, unannounced guest, to tell the people in Washington, no riot, no rebellion, no violence. And then she said, it's like I tell my children when they're on the school bus and they gotta use it, I tell them that you gotta learn how to hold it. So she got up and preached to no violence. And so all around the country, in every single city, there was a certain group of people. Some were cadres of ministers, some were newscasters, some were community leaders, some were just little old people on the street. On no matter what level, we need to know who will show up to help the white man. Because anyone who called an end to the violence are the people that we're going to have to deal with at another point in time. And when we announce that you end up freeze-framed in those situations, in the future, less people will volunteer for the position. This is room that we need. And we're going to get the room by acknowledging those who have this uncharacteristic behavior of choosing to assist the beast. All the beast wanted at any moment was to stop the violence. Let me talk with you. Let's reason this out. Come on TV. Let me give you a grant. Get in line. Just wait on. Hold them down, man. Give them a nigga police chief. Anything to hold it down. And they held it down. They held it down. And the other side of it was so that we keep acknowledging things. And if you read the story here, not only in the riot report that I talk about how they put this brother on every newspaper in the country, but I also talked about how that FBI informant Butler, who hang up under his ass, went on the front of every newspaper in the country, and Butler is the one put Geronimo Pratt in jail. Check. And he lived up in the church. And the word went out that he's in here they call him the incubator of the church. What that mean? He in the middle of the business. And it said the church grows $4 million a year in Sunday receipts. $4 million a year in Sunday receipts. Now, check. This is the 177th point of life of George Bush. See, we didn't know that until it come up. See, it didn't come up till afterwards. He was already in the fold. Got the FEMA money, the weed and seed money, getting all the money. ARCO money. It's a picture in here with my man Mark Whitlock. I know he's a little deceptive. I already dealt with him, so I've been up in the church. Brother, some of the brothers been up in the church with me. It didn't go well. But surely we stood our ground and communicated we was with God. We didn't know who they was impersonating. And they knew who we were. They felt it. They know. I know who they with. God, it sure is bad when they show up. Make it tough on the con man. But here's Mark Whitlock right here with the minister with his hand open with a white man in the room.
Oh, boy.
But what's interesting is the caption in the picture. It says, this is a meeting about economic development in the community. It says, from left, an executive who asked not to be identified. out. He in the room cutting a deal with some niggas.
Yeah.
But he don't want his name out. Check. Now all the other nigga name all in there. Mark Whitlock, Head of Fame, Gerald Collins of the Bank of Montreal, Peggy and Murray Hill. They got more plaques on his wall than he got paint. Now, you say minister only make $35,000. I was sitting up reading this with somebody. Said he only make $35,000. I said, they had bought the nigga the car. Next paragraph, we just bought him a new car. I said, plus they got Minister Appreciation Day. That's when he get that $50,000 to $100,000 cash. No, that ain't his salary. That's his bonus. You think he bringing in $4 million, he don't get no percentage? The 35 come from the AME, who pay all. The AME, the Methodists, the Baptists, they all pay their missionaries to hold down the real estate. That's real estate they standing on. That real estate belongs to the mothership. That's the AME mothership. So the AME mothership pay all their missionaries, like the United Church of Christ pay their ministers. Methodists pay their ministers to hold the real estate for the religion. Okay, so anyway, when we come back to the intelligence community, we're going to come back to this subject since it's so prevalent where we standing now. Oh, Ed, Brother Ed, you looked at anything else in the article you think need to be relayed to the people?
No, not at this point.
All right, check. All right, so not at this point. Get them Ed. Is you going to have it later, Ed? All right. All right. One other thing, as I was saying, we talked the other night, we talked about the intelligence community. I have some copies of that tape up here. I highly recommend it for those of you all who are around. There's one or two things in that lecture that I really want to better have the people understand. One of the other things we talked about was who ends up in a file. We looked at some old files that the government had, and we found out that in one case they had a category for Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, and Category 4. And these were the categories that they fit the people in. And Category 1 was all the national leaders. Category 2 was the sub or the second or third in command leaders, and Category 3 was the rank and file. Category 4 was anybody who wasn't in categories 1, 2, and 3. And that was just to tell us that even though you don't understand how you may end up in a file, way the categories go down, everybody fit in the file some kind of way, even a child. So that fourth category, that all of the above type of thing is type of thing that we suffer from it. Then we talked a little bit about, it might still be left on here, we talked a little bit about a formula from a book on the military intelligence community. And this was a formula. Many of the books, if you start to analyze books that are actually written by the intelligence agencies or used in these schools in Washington, where you have Georgetown and George Washington and the Brookings Institute and a lot of the major think tank college type of systems hubbing in one place around the White House and the State Department, the CIA, there's a lot of materials in the bookstores that service those people, and it's an upgrade level of material that is not normally found in your Dalton or your Crocs or your Crowns. This don't make it that far. It's not meant for everybody, but it is in these little local things. And when you analyze the information that they write to each other, it's a lot of charts, a lot of diagrams, a lot of formulas. It's not a lot of dialogue. Only certain segments of it contain dialogue. They computerize a lot of even how do they decide which informant do they believe when they got conflicting stories? They have formulas for these things. We found in there that there was a formula that they were using in terms of intention plus capability equal threat. That someone may voice an intention to do harm to the government, and that they would make note of the intention. That the main goal of the intelligence officer, we were trying to take a look at the early warning people. And my goal to the audience was to try to have the audience understand that you're in a fight against another set of people. Now let's look into the other set of people and see just what positions they have and how they work. So as we're working against them, we better understand what formulas they're using so we know better how to beat them. And in this dialogue that we found out that an intelligence warning officer's primary immediate goal is to gather the intention. What is the intention? The intention. And then the intention is measured by, we use these flashes to indicate indicators. That if you look into an article, I talk about articles in the paper, now that I looked at different words that they're using like intentions and indicators, I look in articles on the CIA and I find the word indication. Said, what intentions? I see these words. Even though they're simple English language words, I understand now more that they're actually words out of a formula, and that they do use indicators and indication and intentions, capabilities, threat. And so into that formula of what are the intentions were certain indicators. Coakley says he's going to go and take Miami, Florida. An indicator that my intention may be fulfilled is Coakley went to the airport and bought a ticket for Miami. That's an indicator. Doesn't mean, it doesn't say that I did it, but he's measuring intention, and he's measuring intention based on capability. Well, he bought the ticket. And so we're looking at the intelligence community and trying to give some understanding to what they're thinking about. We also talk about airlines tickets and other reservations. And sister, you need a seat? Oh, sister, you gotta have a chair somewhere now. You might be fine. And how's brother? Where brother at? Oh, they okay. And there's a chair right here too. All right. Well, they may want 2 chairs together, so we got
2 over here.
Okay.
3 over here.
All right. Okay, so we were looking at their formula of an early warning officer. We also talked about, and I hate to repeat this for those of you all who were here, but it's just important, worth repeating. Yeah, that's right. It sure was good, Sister J. That stuff was good. I was eating that real late the other night. That was good. That was real good. The rice, I got that brown rice, that wild rice. Yeah, that was good stuff. Anyway, that's good stuff. I mean, I'd be hungry tonight. And so we be conscious of that the early warning officer, we made a point of saying that if the early warning officer, I mentioned being here at the Good Life and announcing that I was going to New York to start some stuff at the Diamond District.
That's right.
And that the early warning officer would have to sound an alarm, and if the indicators looked like it was about to happen, that they would have to go and respond. This is prior to. That they would actually have to go to New York, set up a way to counter it, or be on the scene themselves, or to do this or that. They would have to respond. And if the early warning officer gives 2-3 warnings and don't nothing happen, that he as an employee in the CIA or with Defense Department or military intelligence of the Army or naval intelligence, it's all in the community, that he wouldn't be too effective if he kept giving false warnings. So after you setting him up, it said the one thing that can mess up a warning officer's warning is deception. That if deception, if you deceived him, if you were only correct every other time, or every 4th time, or every 7th time, and he had to keep giving a warning, that he has a tendency to get shell-shocked and to quit crying wolf, and now you got a chance to get past because he's too scared to push the button. Too scared to push the button because he done overplayed his hand in other situations. So we talked about that sometimes we have to consider that we set things up in a scenario to pull the other team off the position and come up with an actual pattern of unreliability. An actual pattern of unreliability. Every day I leave my house a different way. A pattern of unreliability. Now, if you set a pattern that's so easily perceivable by most, when you leave, when you come back, what you do, what you like to eat when you go a certain place, so that they can pre you, then you have to understand that you become vulnerable to others who study your way.
That's right.
And so they study. They have an Office of Leadership Analysis. Now, if this brother here, he's from Nation of Yahweh, and they doing great in this area, and they got great people, then the CIA has a division called the Office of Leadership Analysis, where they just study the people who are the leaders. We already know they got the files.
That's right.
National, sub-national, rank and file, anybody else. Now we got another office that just studies the leaders, the ones that are, the ones that are emerging, and the ones they want. All go into one big pile, and they play probability scales off these piles. And we be conscious of that. They don't move a person. If they want to move somebody at the top, they don't move that person unless they got that second or third person in place. You don't knock somebody out to let anybody come in. That's how we noticed in the Harold Washington thing. Killing Harold Washington was one team. Orchestrating the succession to him was a whole other team. And one team made it and the other team didn't, and they wish they had kept him alive a little longer and give Team B a better chance to pull it off. But they didn't know Team B couldn't have, Jesse Jackson had Team B. They didn't know that he couldn't pull it off. There wasn't enough credibility in his history to compel the black people to pull it off with him. So Team A did kill him. They had to be first. But Team B fucked up, and they wish they had Harold alive again so they could have tried it all over, because they blew. You don't take one out unless you're putting one in. And we be up into that. So we looked at the watch officer, and when we come back on Saturday, we'll be here Saturday, we want to talk more about the intelligence community and take you deeper up into these better viewpoints we have. One area that the CIA is expanding in the future on is in human intelligence. That technologically they cannot rationalize the use of an additional satellite, a computer dish, or whatever, because the enemy is not as prevalent. Now they refocused. I will show you the latest CIA analysis of their own role has knocked out the Russian and put in the so-called third world, the so-called terrorists. And you know that's the black become the priority of the project. So we're going to look better at their goal towards increasing their human intelligence. Their program called HUMINT, H-U-M-I-N-T, is the acronym. We're going to talk about that because our goal would be to neutralize their ability to expand their ranks in our midst. And we can neutralize them by understanding a formula. They're locked into a formula. And remember, as times get tough, the white man only going to have his people hang with him so far. As times get tough, they only going to hang with him so far. Sister, we have a sister here who need a place to sit and a young man who's with her. Yes, brother, do you want to ask something?
One out, one in. Gates out, Williams in.
And I think that'll be solidified by giving the mayor the authority to control Williams and replace the mayor.
Because Gates is no longer under the civil service commission.
Right, now that position is under, right. So now that the black man would have control of the black man, you just get rid of the top black man, make him a white man. And then you can see him percolating that right now, right? And I don't know, brother, them politics is hard to win at that game. I think power, direct action delivers a lot better than politics. And if you just look at this Republican convention thing, I watched Reagan last night, called Thomas Jefferson out.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's their thing. It's that detachment from reality. There's a group of white people that they can excite. You see, here Pat Buchanan give a speech about some hypothetical soldiers taking over of a senior citizen home. And the day the people at the senior citizen home said Pat Buchanan lying, the soldiers didn't even show up. The senior citizens got on the roof and protected their damn self. And Pat Buchanan just made up a story. His ending story was about saving the guard who stood up for the senior citizens in L.A. But it didn't even happen. It was a phony story. Just like Reagan, he started the movie. He started the movie about the pilot. He told the story so many times, 60 Minutes showed him actually then calling it a real story. It was his acting story, but he just after a while, he said it so many times, he couldn't differentiate, you know? And we had to be conscious of that they are unconscious.
Yeah.
And don't be trying to look at them and figure out why they ain't making no sense. They wasn't supposed to make no sense. That's what makes it work well for them. Is it Dan Quayle deflected the entire attention from you to Murphy Brown. Everybody say, oh, ain't he stupid? No, he was real smart, much smarter than you. Because he effectively deflected the whole discussion of the rebellion to a question of single-parent women, period. And it's still off that. I ain't heard about y'all since then. Check. And if we did a content analysis and we put a committee in the room, threw the papers down, did the content analysis, you will see how you waned in dialogue after he deflected the issue. And I checked one of them white boys today on CNN. He said, you know, Quayle's a lot smarter than everybody thinks. He got the best political mind in the White House. And when y'all think he messed up, he actually did just what he needed to do. Just, he can't get no credit for it now. Because they got him in a buffoon outfit, and everybody think he a clown. But if he wasn't part of a deal that had killing in it, he wouldn't be up there on the set now. Because these are killers deals that are on the table.
Right.
They was going to kill Reagan, so he took Bush. And they was going to kill Bush, so he took Quayle. And that's the deal. And they locked in there. And they got to go with Quayle in 96. And Quayle got to go get one of them establishment people to run with him. And that's the deal. On and off, left and right. They all just hooked right there together. Anyway, Let me scoot on past them. We talked a little bit about this book here, the Coin and Tell Pro book. That's where we found the Ghetto Informant Program, about how in 72 they had over 7,000 people in the ghetto working as informants, and they asked the people to take the 50 states and divide up how many cities we got blacks in each state, maybe 10, and see how many you end up with when you got 7,000 to spread around. And it was a ghetto informant program, and the qualification for the informant was he had to live in the ghetto. And you imagine say, oh no, we can't pay him, he's 1 block outside the area. Anyway, y'all get that later.
That's right.
We talked a little bit about Terrence Jackson, somebody putting on the set to act like he knows something about, which when we look at the book, not only was there plagiarism in it, but the fact that it's that paragraph, one paragraph on a bunch of things. And we keep wondering, since it is, I mentioned that one of the things the media had done is that the media no longer reports on the story. That the media's role now is to deflect the story to the story that the people are talking about, that the people are so strong in talking to each other, that the media now has to get in front of the people and concoct its own stories to beat the people's story. And I made a point of it, mentioning a story that I'm looking for now from the Washington Post. I didn't have the story with me last night, but I wanted to show it to you. It's a story about, is there a conspiracy? And even though they never want to write a story about whether there's a conspiracy or confess to one, that they were compelled to have to do it in regards to this story because the people have come up with the decision that they now understand the issue. So the paper better get out there. If their goal is to confuse the people, they better get out there and come up with a story patterned after the people's knowledge so that they can get in there and reconstruct the people's perceptions. Now somewhere that story up here. Now I find it, I guess, as I kick something around. Anyway, it's just a story about the Washington Post about, is there a conspiracy? And it mentions Illuminati, Trilateral, CFR. I mean, things you could never get the newspaper to mention in its own. But they were only in there because, in fact, in Washington, D.C., we have so saturated the community with valid information that we've lifted up the dialogue. And lifting up the dialogue compels those who are misinforming the people to get in step with us, to keep up with us, because the people better understand reality after they've had a chance to see it with us. And so that was a major effect on the people of D.C., and so they've changed their dialogue. And that's the press's responsibility in these days. One thing I did want to mention, somebody asked me about Clinton being a Rhodes Scholar. I mentioned to you this speech of his. The speech was his acceptance speech at the Democratic Convention. Now, the Democrats had their convention for 4 days. It was right on the full moon. It came up with the full moon and went down with the full moon. The Republicans went after the full moon. Now, I'm telling you, these white boys be watching the stars. Don't take that for naught.
That's right.
About who's rising and who's descending and how they play it out. But this book here, written by Carol Quigley, Anglo-American Establishment, establishes that there's a high-level secret society made up of people who are interlocked with the Rhodes Scholars. And in Clinton's acceptance speech, he thanked Carol Quigley, who was his professor at Georgetown University, who said to us that America was the greatest country in the history of the world because our people have always believed in two things, that tomorrow could be better than today, and that every one of us has a personal moral responsibility to make it so. And so Carol Quigley wrote this book, and also Tragedy and Hope. And in his acceptance speech, Clinton gives honor to Quigley, which for us verifies our source as an honorable source. Because you get in these shows, white people say, well, what's your source for that? Say, well, you like Harvard, Princeton. You read back the things they like, and they have to say, yeah, I do. So then you give them their source, and they can't repudiate it without repudiating their institution. Here's a story that may not ran much here. Is that if Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar, then he should have his money in the Rhodes-like things. That's right. Right? So here's a story that got buried. It ran in the Washington Times. Clinton profited from South African investments. What do you think he invested in? De Beers, Minoko, Anglo-American, because he's of the network. He's a part of the network. He's a Rhodes man. Of course he know that's up money. That's good up money. That money guaranteed to go up. It says Clinton and his wife Hillary made a small profit from investments in a South African company in '81. Long after groups opposing apartheid had called for a boycott. Says Clinton had 170 shares of De Beers Consolidated Mines.
How much per share?
Yeah. Now Randall Robinson says if that's true, that constitutes an outrage. You didn't hear it out here, did you? He wasn't too outraged, was he? It was more like an in-house rage. Okay. This is Washington Times front page, July 9th, 1992. This is 1 week before the Democratic Convention. Story never played. Story never. That is G7 boys underneath it. Says here, where we got here, Clinton? Says De Beers stock was listed on the joint tax returns of Clinton and his wife Hillary in '80 and '81. They sold the shares and realized the capital gain. Clinton's joint taxes for '81 show a sale of 100 shares of De Beers, by some estimates the largest South African mining conglomerate, by some estimates.
How much they make?
Yeah, let's see what they got here. And one and one that is an opponent to racial separation policy of apartheid. The couple listed a profit of $472 on the sale of the stock that they brought in November of '78. The 81 form shows a separate sale of 80 shares of stock in Engelhardt Corporation. Engelhardt Minerals and Chemicals is a subsidiary of Anglo-American. That's you remember the movie James Bond? The character in there, the emulated character of Goldfinger was Charles Engelhardt. You see those, if you look on the rail yards here, you see Engelhardt Minerals and Chemicals tank cars on your railroad tracks. That's a subsidiary of Anglo-American and De Beers. Says it says Engelhardt Corporation, a company partially owned by Anglo-American Corporation of South Africa, which is a partial owner of De Beers. You see, now they start talking about the daisy chain, and they don't like to talk about that often, but in one paragraph they weave three things together. The anti-apartheid movement never touched them three, never ever. Still never ever. That's why it failed. Anyway, goes on to say some more about it, but I just thought I didn't want y'all to miss that, because that's worth hearing from. And of course, we didn't forget about Jesse Jackson seeks revival of Black Jewish Coalition, gives a speech at the World Jewish Congress in Brussels where he repudiates anti-Semitism 42 times in 60 minutes. That's just less than a minute. Imagine you're on the clock and you look down and say, oh yeah, I repudiate anti-Semitism. Well, let's see here. Go back to what you were saying, because you got to get it in every minute. Right, he said Zionism was a liberation tool. I hooked that to this story here. This is Chicago Tribune, September 5th, 1991, called Shamir Defends Terror Used to Establish Israel. Now, I don't know what Jesse know about Zionism, but Shamir was one of the top Zionists. And he's saying we terrorized to get our state. We don't know what Jesse talking about. And he goes on to say clearly that Shamir was marking the anniversary of the Stern Gang, an extremist Jewish group he helped lead, defended the right to use terror to establish Israel. Said he was proud of the group's record, which includes a string of bombings, assassinations that even alarmed other Jewish guerrillas in pre-Israel Palestine.
That's right.
We believed in what we did, we believed in what we discussed and wrote, therefore it was correct. One must look and judge it from the point of view of utility of means, the use of personal terror in leading to our goal. From the moral point of view, there's no difference between personal terror and collective terror. Here or there blood is spilled, here or there people are killed, Shamir said. The Israeli leader was dismissive when asked in belief if the goal would justify the Palestinians using the same methods to fight Israeli occupation in the West Bank of the Gaza Strip. Quote, their goal is not just.
That's right.
And Vegas was also
Was a member of that, right? Terrorist, big time terrorist.
Big time. Had warrants out for the rest.
I refer you to the tape called Damn Right Zionism is Racism, which is an effective analysis of the history of Zionism, but also looks at that terrorist activity and shows that the Zionists were only 5% of the Jewish population in the 1910s until Brandeis became the most prominent American Jewish person to speak out for Zionism And then the Zionism movement grew in America, but it was a violent movement. They compelled the allegiance of other Jewish people by kicking their ass.
So what's the percentage now of Zionists in America?
101%. If not by love, then by fear. See, it don't take much to keep them in line.
That's right.
You know, they're already genetically inferior. Check.
Yeah.
In fact, here you go, the end of the white man. There's a Pittsburgh magazine we picked up. End of the white man. He sees it coming and he's worried. Here, you can holler it out. It's on there. And so we be conscious of how they talk to each other around the country. Now, what time is it? What time we got? 8:43. Okay. Okay, let's get it on.
November 27th through December 3rd, 1991.
I also mentioned as you all were walking out the door to keep your eye out on these corporate schools. Something's afloat here. Yale president quits the lead private school project. This is the Financial Times front page, Wednesday, May 27th, 92. Be conscious of this. This is a movement to produce 2,000 corporate schools by 95. That means that Bush gonna let the money out, that the biggest boom in white business is education, the selling of education. Damn. Therefore, the whites behind the scenes have all gotten together to be able to now get the education money when it becomes available, even though their lack of paying equitable taxes is the result that the education's a starved from the jump. But don't tell the people that, because it'll only take them 20 minutes to figure it out.
So what does that mean?
What do that mean?
Yeah.
It means that the people serve a system that they do not understand and continuously serve it without disruption, which is a tribute to the intelligence community, that they can thrust something down your throat that's no good for you, proven to be ineffective, proven not to work, and that they can stuff it down without disruption. That means that the early warners, who are in all of the schools, there's books out now about the CIA on the campuses, and all the way down into the high schools, to assure passivity and the lessening of apprehension against authority figures. The lessening of apprehension against authority figures. Right. And we talked about looking up the United Way. His brother had looked up in the United Way, looked up in there to find the names of the people in his local area, and there they all were, all getting a little early warning system money. Same old formula we looked at. There's the book. Them are all the people who get the money in San Diego. You should get that from your local United Way. Go down there and get the book with who got all the money. They got to give to you. And I'm telling you that some intelligence activity is funneled through the United Way. And at the head of the United Way right now is Kenneth Dam, who I know from Chicago, who was provost of the University of Chicago, head of the Department of Economics, trilateral commissioner, former third member of the State Department. Now he heads the United Way when they just bumped out the $4 million man. No, not Cecil Murray, but that guy Arbacas, whoever he was, who was the man who ran it. Ain't that something? You got $4 million off the black people. The Cecil Murray, you see the story on Cecil Murray? He get $4 million a year. What he need with anything? With $4 million a year. Where do the money go? Since he only make 35. That leave about 965 million. I mean, thousand walking around. Right. No, I mean, plus 3 million. 3 million. Damn. Ooh, shit. Okay, now, I don't know whose tape player this is, but I need a tape player to play something back to the audience about me and the guy who wrote a book. This is the lead-in into this program tonight, about a guy who wrote a book that shares a problem that Cooper shares. This is the book. How many of you all seen this book? All right, well, this guy here, Steele, lives in Virginia, Steele.
Change the tape?
Huh?
Change the tape on this?
How close are you?
Well, a brand new one. Are you starting to pale horse?
No, this should all go together, brother. We don't edit nothing here now. It's all the same thing. I know why I put it on there. Check. This is why we call the program Live and Uncensored. Any cameraman, tape person know that I catch him at that. You didn't cut out that part where I was talking about you in that last tape in Long Beach, did you? Did you cut it out? Did you cut it out? You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Okay, now, because the tape got to be live and uncensored. That's it. See, and let me tell you something. I can say something, get excited, and say something wrong. I lock myself in. I don't go back and save myself. And I listen, so I say, damn, I got excited and said 2 when it was 3. I mean, in my mind, I'm going fast. I'm trying to get you to a spot. I didn't have to relay it just to relay it to you. And so I can hear myself mess up. It got to go. Sometimes at the end of the tape, y'all hear him, I don't hear him. At the end of the lecture, the tape is on, we up here talking. Hey, that nigga in the back, he ain't shit. Right? And y'all done heard the dude told me, said, who is that nigga in the back making all the noise? You said, well, shit, when the lecture was over. See, I don't hear him. I don't go back and listen to him, so I know it's stuff in the tape, but that's the way it go, you know? That's the way it go. And I be talking about people, and we get friends after I done talked about them, but they locked on the tape. They go as long as the tape go. Yes, brother. This guy here is William Steele. Don't buy the book, I'll copy it for you. This is the point about the book, is that we have to have a system of dealing with the white boys' books. And I'm telling you, as I read Cooper's book, he ain't got no problem with the white boys. Now, how many of y'all got the book? There ain't nothing wrong with having the book, because the leaders got to read. Everybody got to read. How many of y'all got the book? This is the book we talking about tonight. Y'all want to talk about the book? No, we fucking throw the book out.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to have a system for copying the book so everybody can get it. Maybe we start a little library here at the Good Life like we talked about before, and when we finish with a book, we'll put the book on a chain on the shelf and let it hang here, and people can read it while they eat. Check. And then be like trophy on the wall. Say, who we done kicked in the ass? Say, well, that ain't hanging right there on the wall. Right? So we just hanging, right? Yeah? All right? So we need to do this here. And the interesting thing, I just have to tell you this, you know, as I made a point of writing a little note to myself to tell you, is that in talking about the guy's book, I don't mean to frame his character. I don't want to put him down. Whatever he think he's doing, he need to keep doing it. Because whatever confusion he cause, as long as we up on it, we don't care what shit it stirs up, right? Because we will understand while the others remain in abyss. And that ain't so bad for us. And this white boy in this book talks about other white boys who, to me, sound a lot alike. And so that's interesting. And also, the white boy says, look, I hate the Masons. He said, but I want the love, I'm for the Constitution. Now listen to me now, this is a heavy piece now. This man is an intelligence man. Now I got the Masons book. They wrote the Constitution. One part of this book, he says, I give honor to the Constitution because some smart men, our founding fathers, split it up into 3 sections, legislative, executive, and judicial. And that was a very smart, profound thing. Well, when I go over to the whodunit book, when you look in the Mason book, that smart little idea is actually an idea from the guy who he say he hurt, he don't like. It said right in the book, it says, the significance of Freemasonry's influence on the Constitution cannot be overstated. Cannot be overstated. Now, this is written by the head potentate dude. Now, we got to get the source. That's Henry Clausen, whose brother was A.W. Clausen, who ran the Bank of America. Check. Yeah. Right. This is California. He was head of the California boys before he became head of the nation boys of the Masons. So he still lives here now. See, it says here, his other positions, past Grand Master of Masons in California, Sovereign Grand Inspector General in California, Sovereign Grand Commander of the Supreme Council, 33rd degree Mother Supreme Council of the world. Check. Yeah. And his brother was head of the World Bank while he was head of World Mason. Check. Yeah. Oh, okay. And they all live right here in California. Check. Okay, so we got good white source. Now let's go over here. I just got to keep repeating this. This is really overstatement. Freemasons conceived. What do you mean you conceived it? The sperm meet the egg. What'd you do? Right. Now you can't be too far away when you do that, can you? How close you got to be? Real close. Okay. So there's no doubt about it. If you conceived it, couldn't nobody else have done it, right? Because it couldn't have been too many people that close all at once. Check? So there's no doubt about it. Who did it? Right. Freemasons conceived, argued. See, some of them got rejected. They didn't fertilize all of them. Some of them didn't make it. And ratified the immortal document, and ever since that historic convention in Independence Hall, Philadelphia, which is what Mark was talking about earlier, he was talking about the Philadelphia boys, Freemasons have given support to its preservation, one of the key issues of the Constitution was the creation of the Supreme Court of the United States as the final arbitrator. And it goes on to talk about that man, John Marshall. And it goes on to say that the Supreme Court set up the concept of judicial review and enforcement of the Constitution as the absolute law of the land. This was central to the Chief Justice. And then it talked about over here about how they split it up into 3 parts and how profound that was, as they went on to talk about all the Masons who was presidents. But the point is what I don't understand about what old boy is saying is that on one hand, he tells you don't get with the Masons, but on the other hand, he plays up Masonic things. And anybody know anything about how things go, no better than to be for the Constitution. Now, when I was talking to a guy in Atlanta, and I mentioned to him I was giving a lecture on Cooper's book, and the guy said, oh, Cooper was assassinated. I said, what? I ain't hearing about Cooper being assassinated. He said, yeah, the word is in Atlanta that Cooper was assassinated. So I asked him to check with the brother who told him, because you know you got to get to who told you. Well, brother told me, well, you call brother ass right now and call me back, because I got to tell the people who are out here where Cooper lived, right? So he called me back. He called me back, and he tell me that he ain't dead, and he told me that there was a hotline number, and somebody named Stan Barrington, and this was the hotline number, this Cooper hotline number, 310-281-8222, and that this hotline number is where the information flow, and that somehow somebody was spreading this rumor to help activate their program. I didn't quite get it. I know that when somebody starts spreading the rumor that you dead, you ain't, you better grab your ass because you might be soon.
That's right.
Okay? And so somebody got to come up with some decision about how that works. Now, but what I found about most definitely in the book again was the fact that you get things like, okay, first I want to tell you my values is that I believe in God. I believe it's the same God as my ancestors. Now, right there, you know we got a problem, right? That's the big old white guy with the blue eyes. And we know that ain't God.
That's right.
So when he stand up and say that I give my support to that guy, we know right away that we on the devil alliance, right? Because this thing is an opposite. Check. So now we had to give some knowledge to that. Now, there's some parts of the book that are good. There's some parts in the book that I'm going to go through each chapter. I'm going to rate them for you. There's some parts of the book I think are good. I think everybody should have access to every book that has any general level of information on these subjects, because you even have to give weight to deception. And so you have to have access to the information to give weight to it. He says, I believe in God and the God of my ancestors, and my ancestors came from England, Scotland, and Ireland.
Okay.
They fought on both sides of the Civil War. He's a regular white guy, because they usually on all sides of the same issue, because the issue ain't never the issue. Check. So he says white is Chinese, that he ain't a right-wing radical, a white racist, a communist party, nor an alcoholic. And that some of his friends would call him a liberal Democrat. And that he says a little Cherokee blood in his family, and that didn't nobody want to talk about it. He also mentioned something I thought was interesting. He says that his father was a U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel named Milton Cooper. And I thought what was interesting about that is that in the book by Steele, this guy who we debated on the radio in Washington, in the book by Steele opens up his book with a scenario from his father, who also is a retired lieutenant colonel. And I thought it was interesting that the books are on the scene basically sort of saying some of the same things, but they're sons of the military. And that means that those type of things, you know, when you're in the military and you're moving up security checks, you in effect have to put your butthole on record, your rectum, your colon, your stomach, the size of your esophagus, all that go in your security check.
That's right.
So if you're the son of someone in check, you checked. If you didn't check yourself on top of that check, you the double check. Ain't much about you that you don't offer up to them to be a part of what they're doing. Another part in here, he mentions that he signed certain secrecy agreements over some of the information that he had to read. And the question always becomes, do you still, somebody's tape went off, do you still abide by those secrets? Because anytime, we had a brother who just wrote a book on the CIA, he was on the radio in Washington, D.C., and I asked him, he said that he wanted to tell the people about some projects he worked on, but he couldn't tell because he still had some secrecy agreements. So I said, well, look, brother, man, if you coming out into the black community telling us you coming back out here to help us, then you can prove your loyalty to us right now by telling us something that you say you can't tell us. Because this is how you have to prove your loyalty to us. Because as long as you upholding his security agreement, you are still protecting his security.
That's right.
Which means you are still him without pay. And you have to prove to us who you are. So it's a book, a brother got a book out, I forget what the name of it is, about the CIA. I did talk to the brother after the program. But he didn't want to tell about his book. Yeah, see, now, I put the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus shit on him because he was in the room. I stepped it up for him. Because I don't want you to feel uncomfortable because one of them show up. Surely we ain't got no security problem with one of him. Right? They got to do better than that.
That's right.
So it'd be one of y'all before it'd be one of them. They too obvious. Check. See, I wouldn't have never worked, would it? Right? Okay. But if it was in the bathroom, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? All right. Okay, so we be up on that. So, yeah, now see, that's what you do. See, you can send one out and send the other one in. Leroy, you go in. Because they didn't make it safe for me. We say, Leroy, if you hang here long enough, your ass will be with us. Check. Right. We don't mind him sending them some. We can work them over, too. He says daddy liked to whip him. He said that he used to sit around listening to his daddy, who was a pilot, talk about the UFOs. And he and his guys used to have UFOs now. I've read the man book. I know the man got UFO phobia. When I say UFO phobia, at one point in the book he says, they just created the National Security Agency. The number one priority of the National Security Agency is to deal with the alien question. Part two is to deal with intercepting communications from citizens, foreign and local. Now, I just had to suggest to you that to deal with the aliens, you ain't going to set up no National Security Agency because you just going to deal with the alien, call it the Alien Agency. You don't have to set up the NSA to have a number one priority of dealing with aliens. There's different points. See, it's like you had it. I'm trying to come to you with a conclusion. And I keep telling you I got to keep putting factors in so we can come to the same conclusion. But I just can't go, because I showed you this and we ain't have to go through next Saturday. The conclusion is that we can do it this way. You say, well, I'd like to see how he added it up. In other words, I ain't no good as a teacher if you can't see my formula. You have to see how I think. I have to show you how I came to this conclusion to give weight to where the conclusion goes. So I just can't go, well, you know, it sure was hot out. It sure was hot out. So therefore, there were 20 less people in the Good Life. I mean, there has to be some correlation there. And he comes up with this situation where he just throws shit in. He said, well, you know, they set this up, and actually that was to deal with the alien, but then they also fronted it out and said they was going to spy on the community groups. I mean, and another point in here is that the overuse of the word alien, and I actually think, as I read the book, I got to read it one more time, I think that the alien ain't who I thought it was. That the alien is a code word for your black ass. And go back and read in their books and supplement the word alien with black people. And see if it make more sense to you. Because when I went back, I said, no, that ain't the UFO. That could be. Why wouldn't the National Security Agency and the National Security Council make killing the nigger the number one priority? The alien question. Alien. Listen now. Where did they come from? Where did we come from? Alien. 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 Foreign to what? Hey, something's going on here. He's talking in a language that might not be the present. The present. He's talking beyond himself. And I think that if you look back in the book, look at it carefully, supplant alien with nigger, it make more sense to you. Because the alien thing he talking about, he said, well, he said the aliens met with Eisenhower and they cut a deal. The aliens would abduct people at random And as long as they told Eisenhower how many they abducted and where they took them from, as long as they didn't harm them and they returned them on time, that the aliens could take the people, 12 a month or something. Well, then it says a little bit later that the aliens reneged on the deal. So Eisenhower revoked the deal with them. Now get the fuck out of here. Because how can you abduct a mother and keep her away from her family 2 weeks without notice and return her unharmed without harming her family? You know, and then he says that he was in the army and he read all the alien stuff, you know. Now, yes, there are some extraterrestrial capability, but it ain't got nothing to do with even the white man's ability to see the shit, right? He can't even see the shit. He's guessing about the things that he's doing, hoping somebody will vilify or verify something he's saying. One way or another, he need to clear up this act in his head. Okay. Where do white people come from? Where do white people come from?
Cave.
What was the first cave? Huh? Somewhere up there, right in Coral Cave. Now, where we come from?
God.
Did the white man come from us? How did we know that?
There are children.
Oh, now listen to me. Now, it might not be, that may be so. He is justified where he has come from by calling himself a higher form of you. You know, you the monkey thing. Jack, now come on now, he ain't dressed you up in no suit. Okay. No nothing, he ain't called. In fact, even here, when Cooper talks about secret societies, he says that we model them after the primitive ones from the primitive people over in Africa. Now, what was primitive about Africa? Not a damn thing. So, what he brings into the dialogue is his perception that you the primitive one. And when he talks about that the goal of the white man is to civilize and colonize the universe, and he wants it to be done right. Colonize the universe, do it right. Now, how do you rightfully colonize? You taking shit from somebody else. That's what it means, take something from someone else. Well, anyway, yeah. So, this guy Cooper is strange. He got some strange stuff in here. Mentions that when he was a youth, he was in the Demolay. Said that helped him. He said if I hadn't belonged, he said when I was getting a job with Navy Intelligence, they asked him if he had ever belonged to any fraternal organization. He says, I looked down the list and circled the Demolay Society and answered in the affirmative. He says, I was assigned to Operation Status Report Office under Lieutenant Colonel Mercado while I awaited the results of my FBI background check for upgraded clearance. Then they gave him another security clearance, and he went to Sin Sea Pest Fleet. Looked like a Central Pacific Fleet in acronym, and he was on the briefing team there. And he knew about, he says one day on June, he says that one day, it says on that day, on the day I learned that the Office of Navy Intelligence had participated in the assassination of President John Kennedy, and that was the Secret Service agent driving the limo that shot Kennedy in the head, I went AWOL with no intention of ever returning. My good friend Bob Swain was the one who talked me into going back. Later on June 1st, 1972, the eve of my wedding, I told Bob everything I knew about the UFOs, Kennedy's assassination, the Navy, the secret government, the coming ice age. Little cave language. Alternatives 1, 2, and 3, Project Galileo, and the plan for New World Order. I believe that it was all true then, and I believe it's all true now. He says, I must warn you, however, that I have found evidence that the secret societies were planning as far back as 1917 to invent an artificial threat from outer space in order to bring humanity together into a one-world government. And like I said, it does not have to be that they're not extraterrestrials, but in the dialogue that he serves it up as. Just like I find again in his book, like I find in others, this overuse of the word Illuminati. I ask anyone to go out and bring me anything from an Illuminati, with an Illuminati thing on it. Because in formula, the Illuminati is at its best a concept of a group of people. But if you were chasing it, you will never find it. You must put something more specific on the name to catch the people. And that's why we use Rhodes Rothschild and the Masons, the Skull and Bone. Be more specific about those groups and who they are.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. He says, I believe first in God, the same God in which my ancestors believed. I believe in Jesus Christ as he is my Savior. Second, I believe in the Constitution of the Republic of the United States of America. Now, that's some deep shit. Now, that put me in disagreement. It says, this is my creed. In formula, I disagree with creed number 1 and with creed number 2. Now, I still have to be mature enough to go through his information and extract what is good of it, and in consideration of my disagreement with his values, put in place those things I disagree with, but extract those of some value. He says, without the Constitution, without interpretation, as it was written and meant to work. I have given my sacred oath, quote, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That's in quotation marks. So he is to the death a defender of the Constitution. And again, goals. Coakley's goal is a righteous revolution. The unifying document of the white race in America is the Constitution. For my righteous revolution to succeed, it must destroy the cornerstone of unity of the white race in America, the Constitution. He is a defender of the Constitution. At one point, under certain circumstances, we may stand in a roadblock with swords, knowing that we will have to kill him to get past. If you see it the way I see it. You may see it the way he see it. That'd be your business. You could be there with him. Anyway, third, he believes in the family unit. And he's sworn to give his life, if required, in defense of God, the Constitution, and his family. And fourth, he believes that any man without principle, that he is really ready and willing to die for at a given moment, is already dead and is of no use or consequence whatsoever. If any man without principle, that he is ready, I believe that any man without principle, that he is ready and willing to die for at any given moment, is already dead. Meaning that he believes in his God, his white Constitution, and his family. His wife is Chinese, so I can't say white. But that's him and his baby there. We put a little personal touch in there. That's him and his baby. It says, my goal is to translate, analyze with a critical, African-centric eye his information. I do not seek to discredit him personally. I can see he has enough problems with other whites, especially over the Kennedy thing. But this tape will help our people give accurate weight to his research, his real values and goals, to declare the real white boy hidden deep in his soul, to get a better grasp on possible real intentions based on looking under the sheets. So now, in his first chapter, he talks about himself. I'm going to go past himself because he one guy, he went in the army, got out, he got in the other service. He just went out of one, got in the other. There ain't many people that stupid. So he said that was before he got conscious, so I won't hold it too much against him. He has this early section of the book, chapter 1, excerpts from Silent Wars for Quiet Wars, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. A copy furnished from Mr. Tom Young, a fellow warrior in the cause of freedom. You ever see where that white guy went, Marcus? Hey, Janie, what did he ask you? I know something because I seen the look on your eye.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what did he ask you?
He certainly is not Queen of Sheba, is he?
Speaking of him or me?
No. That's what he asked, or that's what he said about you.
That I'm not the Queen of Sheba. I don't get it. He really was saying, I guess I'm not wanted here, am I? Was that what he really was saying? Because I didn't get that far. Huh?
That's basically
But this was not a mild-mannered discussion.
Not for his kind.
All right. Okay.
Check.
People are smoking. All right. He says that this copy is some from Tom Young. I will just tell you this about the first chapter. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of dialogue. Things he used from another guy, different parts he interjects his own feelings in. He says, when a silent weapon is applied gradually, the public adapts to its presence and learns to tolerate its encroachment on their lives until the pressure, psychological via economic, becomes too great and they crack up. Therefore, the silent weapon is a type of biological warfare. It attacks the vitality, the options, the mobility of individuals of a society by knowing, understanding, manipulating, and attacking their sources of natural and social energy and their physical, mental, and emotional strengths and weaknesses. He gives a dialogue that I think has some value, especially later on in this particular chapter, of different things that could go into a model that would analyze what you do. He's still out there?
Law, man.
Huh?
Law.
He the police? What?
Damn. We must be doing something.
Revolution is on.
What did he do, get in the police car? What did he get in?
You got 5 squad cars down on Jefferson, right over by Union Bank.
You're doing something right.
He got out.
Keep
I
on
followed
working.
him down the street. Talked to his sister, his informant, slipped in something, and hopped in the car.
That's when he disappeared right by the bus stop. He
We're
disappeared
doing
into a
something right.
corner,
Let's carry on with
and
the
then
work.
came
Don't
right
worry
across.
about
Hold on, now let me hear from the soldiers, because we better follow him out. So everybody did what they're supposed to do, Jack.
Jack.
Right? All right. All happened very quietly. So what happened now? What happened now? They went on where?
Okay, he disappeared right before we get to the bus stop at Jefferson. He walked into a little doorway, and I saw 2 people walk out, and I wasn't sure if it was him. And he disappeared. It looked like going to the bus stop, and then I saw him walk across the street, across Jefferson.
Okay, all right. Give a call at the home base, make sure everything all right. Would you do that for me? Jenny, would you let him use the phone? All right. Okay, now, so we be conscious of them. Jack.
Jack.
All right. Who, anybody got a camera here?
Yeah.
Did you get him on the camera?
No, I didn't.
I got
Now,
two.
come on now. Anytime they come in, I should have said, just give him a twist. Ain't ready? Give him a twist. Right, give him a twist. All right. You can keep on with it. But we just be up on them, right? Anybody by the door, watch the window. I know brother there, he good brother, he take care of him. Okay, all right. And now, there's one part in that first chapter where he discussed things of how people can compile information on you. And he mentions different things in a list. I highly recommend you looking through this list. This is pages 53, 54, 55, 56. That on these pages, in 57, he gives a good list of things that people would use to categorize knowledge about yourself. Short list of inputs, questions to be asked. What, when, where, how, why, and who. General sources of information. Telephone taps, surveillance, analysis of garbage. Behavior of children in school. Standard of living, food, shelter, clothing, transportation. Social contacts, telephone. Itemized record of cars, family, marriage certificates, birth certificates, friends, associates, memberships in organizations, political affiliation. Personal paper trail, checking accounts, credit card purchases, tagged credit card purchases, the credit card purchase of products bearing the UPC code, assets, checking accounts, savings, real estate, business, automobile, safety deposit at bank, stock market, liabilities, creditors, enemies, loans, consumer credit, government sources, welfare, Social Security, USDA, surplus food, doles, grants, subsidies. And it just goes on, government sources, IRS, OSHA, census, etc., habitable patterns, activities, fears, angers, crime records, hospital records, drug sensitivities, reaction to pain, psychiatric records, fears, angers, disgust, adaptability, reactions to stimuli, violence, suggestions or hypnosis, pain, pleasure, love, sex, methods of coping, adaptability, behavior, consumption of alcohol, drugs, and attainment, religious factors influencing behavior, other methods of escaping reality. Payment, modus operandi, MO of payment, payment on time is what they're looking for. Telephone bills, energy, water, loans, house payments, automobile payments on credit cards. Political sensitivity, beliefs, contacts, positions, strengths, weaknesses, projects, activities. Court records, police records, driving records, reports made to police, insurance information, anti-establishment acquaintances. Anyway, it just goes on to give a list of things some of you, as you listen through those things, you could hear where you could be picked up on those various patterns. And so what he, oh, thank you, brother. Glad to see that. Yes.
My brother Kitty got a police monitor right here.
Huh?
He's listening to the police scanner.
All right. What they saying?
Man, we ain't found them yet.
All right. Okay. So in that first chapter, there are some things in that portion of the chapter that deal with telling you things about how they would look at you. I give some weight to that. Everything all right? Okay, thank you. And so we keep up with that. Now, Brother Marcus, this is a portion especially that we have to discuss publicly because we have to come to some consensus about how we're going to handle these. Chapter 2 is part of the dangerous chapter, Secret Societies and New World Order. In this discussion now, he's trying to trace the source of the people who are fighting against his people. So now he's going back. When he goes back, he ends up picking us up. And this is a dialogue that comes out. You'll find the same dialogue in Epperson's book. And in Epperson's book, you'll find it listed under this section here, chapter, here we go here, Serpents, Stars, and Suns, chapter 7, chapter 9, Lucifer worship, right? Now we got this problem. I mentioned to you it the other night, the ancient mysteries, another chapter, is that as the whites look back at the ancient African thing, the original thing, the thing from which all things come, they then look at our things and call them paganism, that they're non-Christian. They do not represent their religious values, that big white God. Therefore, when they look at these things are considered evil worship. The black thing was evil worship. The white thing is Christianity. Of course, if Oshawa Kwesi was here, he'd do the African origin of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism.
Yeah.
So we could match. See, we now got to set the white boys up in a way that we communicate to them that this is the last time we will allow them to perpetrate the falsehood of Africa. So then we line up the appropriate definitive sources. See, I checked in the white boy's book. He loved to debate. Epperson been calling me all up and down the East Coast, and I already didn't talk to this white boy still. We ain't made the contact with Cooper yet. We're going to get him. And get these white boys in a spot where we compel them to come to certain conclusions. And then all of a sudden, all the other shit is out. That they can't perpetrate the things that we prove to them are wrong, or then we can just step up off the table and say, I have a better idea of you as my enemy, therefore, I'm glad to know you better. Be pleased to know one does not like you. Bless him. So he goes on to say that the history is replete with whispers of secret societies, accounts of elders or priests who guarded the forbidden knowledge of ancient peoples from meeting in secret who directed the course of civilization are recorded in the writings of all people. The oldest is the Brotherhood of the Snake, also called the Brotherhood of the Dragon. Where Brother Marcus? Somebody need to put Brother Marcus in. It says that the Brotherhood of the Snake is the Brotherhood of the Snake is devoted to guarding the secret of the ages and recognition of Lucifer as the one and only true God. If you do not believe in God, Lucifer, or Satan, you must understand that there are great masses of people who do. I do not believe in racism, but millions do. And then there's subtles who don't know that they are. The Brotherhood of the Snake, the Brotherhood of the Dragon. Keep that in mind. We're going to come right to that in a second. It says, I do not believe in racism, but millions do. And their beliefs and actions based upon these beliefs will affect me. It is clear that religion has always played a significant role in the course of these organizations. Communications with a higher source, often divine, is a familiar claim in all but a few. It says, I found it intriguing that in most, if not all, primitive tribal societies, all the adults were members. They are usually separated into male and female groups. The male usually dominates the culture. Surprisingly, this resembles many civilized secret societies. Now we have a differentiation between the primitive and the civilized. And there in that description, the use of describers will come out indicators of the subtleness of his own racism. Everybody all right? All right. It says here that that secret societies are important because of the exclusivity of the membership. It says the mystery is that religion is but a tool to control the masses. Knowledge or wisdom is the only God through which man himself will become God. The snake and the dragon are both symbols of wisdom. Lucifer is the personification of the symbol. Now here we go again. It was Lucifer who tempted Eve. Now, once you bring Adam and Eve into the picture, you got another set of dialogue. Okay, what does this Adam and what does this Eve look like? And where is it you say they was hanging at? In Eden. Right? So now that's another discussion. We will allow them to explain themselves. But we articulate that. These things could disagree with our own value systems and understanding of divinity. And so we stand to correct it. It says here that Lucifer is the personification of the symbol. It was Lucifer who tempted Eve to entice Adam to eat of the tree of knowledge and thus free man from the bonds of ignorance. The worship of knowledge, science, and technology is Satanism. The worship of knowledge, technology, and science is Satanism in its purest form, and its God is Lucifer. Its secret symbol is the all-seeing eye in the pyramid. Now you see how he just walks across some stuff? He's saying 1, 2, 3, then he jumps and says 20. Said I was walking down counting and I went from 1 to 20. And he missed something in the middle. He says the worship of knowledge and science and technology is Satanism in its purest form. And the God is Lucifer. Its secret symbol is the all-seeing eye in the pyramid. Now, he's taking white guys who picked up the pyramid. It was white guys. I have a point in my lecture, especially when I'm at the colleges, of talking to the students about imagining the meeting when the white boys decide they're going to put the pyramid on the dollar, and they walking around saying, any of y'all seen this damn thing? He said, no, man. So what we going to put on it? He said, let's put a cave on it. You know, like the play, let's just put a cave and shit. They don't say, let's put a coffin on the shit. You know, they trying to argue over what they're going to put on it to represent themselves. And so the guy says, well, I heard about this thing in Africa. Brother Napoleon, who was a Mason, who did what when he saw the Sphinx? Because as a Mason, that would disagree with his own thoughts about the original things. So we're talking about a group of white boys who stole this. Now he's taking the white boys who stole it and giving them attributes as if they built it. See, you can't accredit a white boy for interpreting this symbol when he didn't make the symbol. He's just another white boy in the line who, like a tourist, saw it, if he even saw it. But the point is, see, in the adding up of his dialogue, he just slashes into that conclusion without base. And so this is where he does things to us. Now, let me slide over here. He says that the most important of all these ancient groups is the Brotherhood of the Snake or Dragon, which was simply known as the Mysteries. Now, what do we know about that, Brother Marcus? About this Brotherhood of the Snake or Dragon? What's to that? Anybody know anything about that? And then he's hooking it into the Mysteries. Now, it seems like somewhere in Stolen Legacy, which is he's talking about the stealing of the mysteries by the Masons and others to emulate that the mysteries as a dialogue about people who were brought into manhood in our countries are now being manipulated in another dialogue. Here it says the snake and the dragon are symbols that represent wisdom. The father of wisdom is Lucifer, who is also called the light bearer. The focus of worship of the mysteries was Osiris, another name for Lucifer. Is that correct? What the fuck? What we got here? It says Osiris was the name of the bright star that the ancients believed had been cast down onto earth. Yeah, that's the angels. The literal meaning of Lucifer is bringer of light or morning star. After Osiris was gone from the sky, the ancients saw the sun as the representation of Osiris, or more correctly, Lucifer. Now, what did he just do? And what did he do? By taking a term of theirs. Now, this is the beginning of this type of knowledge. This is not a version of something. This is the beginning of a certain type of knowledge. Without this beginning, there would be no such knowledge.
That's right.
Now, he says Osiris is another name for Lucifer. Then he does a quote. See, this is how they do the hook in. His next thing is a little quote from Albert Pike. Osiris was represented by the sun. Now, again, he's taking Pike, the Morals and Dogma, Pike's analysis of African things, and condemning Pike's version as the version. When it ain't got nothing to do. This is above Pike. This is beyond Pike. He's just a molehill.
You're contradicting yourself. If Osiris is supposed to be the devil, how can he now be the sun?
Well, see, remember, they was the ones with the devil and the fire gimmick. The devil was the fireman. Y'all remember that? You know, he stood in hell, you burnt? Yeah, brother.
That's just the same stuff they always do, Steve. Any shit that they don't understand, they vilify. They did not understand the mystery system. In order to combat it, they came up with Catholicism. It's bullshit.
Right,
You know?
right,
They don't
right.
understand.
Jack. Right, the people that ratified your conclusion. It's bullshit. But now, it's in the middle of our shit, though.
That's right.
See, I'm telling you, the point I'm trying to make is that Epperson does the same thing. Steele does the same thing. This is the problem. It isn't just in that book. Ancient Secret Societies, Lucifer or Satan. So are Masons Satanists? Not at all, though a few Masons know it. The god of Masonry is Lucifer. What's the difference between Lucifer and Satan? Luciferians think that they're doing good. Satanists think they're evil. In the Bible, Lucifer was God's most important angel, perfect in the ways, full of wisdom and perfect beauty. Although he was the highest angel, Lucifer wanted more. He wanted to replace God. He led the first revolutionary rebellion against God. See how they set it up? The niggas worship Lucifer, and Lucifer rebelled against who? God. My God.
Again, Steve, all they got is 33 degrees. The ancient mystery system was at least 88 degrees, brother.
Right.
So they fell way short.
Way short. That's why now they're trying to go to Memphis. What you know about that? What you doing laughing? See, you ain't... Chad. So y'all gotta listen now. If you listen carefully, you'll know who know, right? Just a no, right? We know brother no. In the right sort of way. Yes, brother.
It's bullshit, but you could also say that we wasn't supposed to naturally read as masses.
And that's the phenomena that we have to give vouch to.
Recruiting his own soldiers for the battle.
That's what he's doing.
Right, but here's the thing.
He's giving them fire.
Is that these books are more popular in the black community than the white community. Because the black people are searching for the information, right? Yeah. A white boy who's on the track and his horse is way out front, he ain't looking back trying to perfect no technique when he don't see nobody pressing him for the lead.
That's right.
So he'll ride a sloppy gumpy race. He'll eat while he rides, right? Because he don't feel threatened by nobody on his track. Check. Yeah. So we give conscience to that, and be up on the fact that these things are drawing in, and the questions, the use of the terms, the manipulation of the symbolism are extremely subtle. Again. Be extremely conscious of the fact that we have to reinterpret these things. I need somebody's tape player to set up this guy. I want to hear you. They brought the boy Steele. This is the problem. This is what we have to do. They brought the boy Steele on the radio in Washington, D.C., and they played him up real big. Now, originally they wanted me to come on and debate the white boy, but somehow they decided not to call me. So the white boy came on without me. I just happened to be coming out of a restaurant and picked up the radio, picked up the white boy on the radio, and got right on him. Here he is over here trying to get away. So had to get right on him. And as you know, last time we were here, we played the Jesse Jackson stuff. And we keep catching people on the radio getting to them to declare themselves. In a way, that will help us. Also, you all haven't heard the David Mills tape yet, with me and David Mills, the guy who... Okay, now what Steele says is interesting, is that he comes on the radio in Washington, and he makes a point of something that Cooper does too. I thought was interesting. He makes a dialogue. He's talking about the CFR, the Trilateral, the Bilderberger. And Steele does the same thing. I want to get this down because and we need them marker things. What time is it? The kitchen closed already?
9:33.
The kitchen closed already? Oh, but I mean, I just want anybody here home? Nah, just kidding. I need one of them writing things. I just want to do it real quick. Yeah, he's saying one did Professor Griff 4 years earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. How you doing? You all right? Good, good. Okay, he does this thing. I thought this was interesting conclusion because we're so late in the game. He says, Cooper says, he says now, Rockefeller don't run nothing, here or abroad. And I thought that was interesting. Okay, Rocky, nothing. I thought that was interesting. He'll talk about CFR. He talks about the Bilderberger. He talks about the Trilateral. And then he looks at it, he says, the big daddy, the most powerful of all the white groups is this one right here, the Bilderberger. That it was the Bilderberger's goal to come up with the New World Order. The only problem is that the Bilderberger didn't start until 52. 52. Now, you can't be running no New World Order and you wasn't around in 1800, 1700. This thing been going on since 1400. Okay? But now he calls out the Bilderberger as the most powerful. He says that the CFR started them off, turned it into the Bilderberger, and the Trilateral was just a little deception in the past. The problem is that each one of these represent a phase. They're not separate from the other. And you had to be, you was a teenager before you was a young adult. You was an adult before you was a senior citizen. You can't separate the stages. These are progressive stages. You can't pull one out and say one is any better than the other without understanding. Which of your fingers is the most important? Well, you may say, well, the thumb may do more than the first finger. Yes, they may, but you can't separate. You don't want to separate them at least, I don't think. Anyway, so he says that this is nothing, this is everything, and this was nothing. The only problem is this was the link to the secret society, the Rhodes and the Rothschild. And you couldn't have any of these without this one. This one is still going on. He says, well, this one got tired, so then they start using this one. No, this one was the unity of the secret society. This one was the management of the New World Order in a three-sided way. This was a phase. The core group in 72, United States, Western Europe, and Japan, is the core group that's leading the world right now. That's right. This is the management group. This was the unity of Europe. The goal of the Bilderberger group in 52 was the 40-year goal of the unity of Europe in 92. Period. Period. And now that it has done that, and the first chairman of the Bilderberger group from America was David Rockefeller. The vice chairman was Dean Rusk, who was a Rhodes Scholar, Secretary of State under Kennedy, the man who took Carter to Rockefeller and put him on the Trilateral. He's from Atlanta, Georgia, too, Dean Rusk, who used to be chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation. So I thought that was confusing, and when Steele got on the radio, he made a point of telling the people in Washington that the Trilateral Commission was really nothing and that they would be foolish to spend any time studying it. So I call in and I say, well, how could you say it was irrelevant when it is compelling the unity of the Free Trade Agreement? It is the G7. It built the United Nations. I mean, I started going backwards with him and showing this web, and he said, well, on the radio, he said, well, obviously you know more about the Trilateral than I do. So I tell the audience, he said, what do you want me to do? Okay, I tell the people, you know more about that than me. I said, that's not the point. You must apologize to my people for telling them something which you claim now you knew not. So my question now is, why were you telling them since now you've admitted you didn't know? That's when you get into, well, since you had no reason for saying it, who the fuck sent you? Now that we done took your clothes off, what is you doing impersonating a man with them female genitals? That's right. Check. Now the white boy is scared because, check this out. Now here go black people. The station in Washington, WOL, always claim they can't find my number to put me on. But the white boy is mad after I kick his ass on the radio, so the white boy calls the phone company, can't find no number for me. He called the station give him my home number. The white boy, I pick up the phone, it's the white boy on the phone. I speak to Steve Coakley. I said, who this? He said, this is William Steele. I said, how you get my number? He said, the people at the station gave it to me. I said, that's strange. They claim they can't find my number, that's why I ain't been on. Check. Right? Now, the question, so I go to the station people, I say, you promoting the white boy. You got to check your white boys before you promote them. Don't be promoting no white boy without having shook them down appropriately. Who financed your book? What do you believe in? See, the white boy kept saying, well, these Masons are bad, we need to be Christians. And I'd be saying, Christianity don't fit the pattern either. So, he was getting away. Now, this guy, one guy calls in, and he scares the guy. He says, look, I'm going to kill you for talking against the Masons. It's a black dude. So this guy is real scared. When he called me up, he said, you think that black guy is going to beat me? I said, probably if he catch you. Oh, here we go, here, Brother Coakley. Manipulating terms that come from out. Now this is not that loud, so we're gonna have to hear it the best we can. I hope you can pick it up, Osako. I think I got it up about as high as it goes. Okay, he mentioned he didn't know much about. He said that trilateral what nothing. He mentioned that Gorbachev and them was a pawn of America, which was true. Gone to Harvard to get the economic program that the IMF. Okay, gotta go back. Still catching it.
What kind of program is that?
This is what the show here. This is the #1 talk show in Washington D.C. His sister named Kathy Hughes owns a AM station there, WOL.
Anti-communist guy supporting the very communist system down to the last man. What did he use as an excuse? He said, well, it would be destabilized and Gorbachev would go.
Anybody got any louder? Anything louder? Okay, listen.
Yes, Bernie, how are you, brother man?
Go ahead and ask your question. You got, we're short on time.
Well, this is Brother Steve Coakley.
Ask your question, Brother Steve.
Well, see, he's given so many mess-ups here, I need to really lay into it very good. First thing, this question about the Soviet Union and the breakup was a dark day for the New World Order people. That is absolutely false. And it equals his underestimation of what the Trilateral Commission's role was as the engineers of the New World Order, because in '72, when they announced with the three-cluster theory that the world would revolve around the economic powers of America, Canada, Western Europe, and Japan, the Chinese and the Soviet Union were supposed to collapse. The white side of the Soviet Union was to go into the Western European side of the world order. The Asian side of the Soviet Union was to go into the Japanese cluster. That is exactly what they did. There's absolutely nothing about Yeltsin having gone to Harvard to get the economic program that the IMF, World Bank, and Bush and the rest of them just accepted as an agreement to bring them into the New World Order is exactly what they wanted. The extensive role of the American CIA in the breakdown of Eastern Europe as well as the Soviet Union. Yes, the president is supposed to underestimate his real role and relationship in engineering the coup and the breakdown of the Soviet Union, and the engineering of the weaponry has clearly showed exactly the relationship between the New World Order boys, the Trilateral's role as the engineers of this phase, the three-cluster phase of New World Order. And if you go into this question of Christianity, it is... Okay, hold on, wait a second. Let me comment on that.
Go ahead.
Because I want to give credence to what you're saying. You're obviously better informed on the trilaterals than I am. So go ahead. Okay, and so then that brings up the question then, why would you underestimate what their role is in engineering something? But let's go on. Another part you mentioned was the role of Christianity. Christianity has been used to colonize people of color since the beginning of the white man. There is no doubt that we can never equate in our community Christianity with morality. You tried to dissipate Christianity's role in Masonry, which is false. You have heard of York Rite Masons, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sure. I mean, they claim to be Christians, but they do. But Jesus told us to swear no oaths at all, much less horrible blood oaths.
Well, I'll go a little further. You tried to underestimate the role of the Masons in Christianity, but it is the founder of the Mormons. I'm sorry, the Mormons in Christianity, but it is the founder of the Mormons who was a Mason, or what they call York Rite or Penny Mason.
Yeah, well, I already pointed that out, sir. You didn't listen to the whole program.
Well, I may have missed that part. There's no doubt. I was in a car. I had to come all the way home just to get this opportunity to square some of this away. The other part has to deal with this question of Albert Pike manipulating terms that come from Africa, like Horus and Osiris, and Christians then taking that law and calling all worship related to Osiris and Horus paganism. And this is an active role of the conspiratorial nature of Christianity to take things that have originated in Africa, which they have never respected, and always trivialize those things by Masonry. You can't show beyond your Bible, allegedly, the beginning of deity amongst your people unless you go back to Africa. Now, your book, which I have, I use your book in my lectures. I have studied your book. I've dealt with the potential coup. You misconstructed who was actually pulling the coup off. You alleged that Nixon was the one that was pulling the coup, but if you take the book, The Silent Coup, which is about the best book you could have on Watergate, you will see that the military was watching Nixon. Nixon had control of no military, whether they be a civilian or lifetime military.
You obviously did study the book very well, because that's exactly what I point out. Nixon was not in control. In fact, it was the military and their obedience to their oath of office, namely to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and not the President of the United States, which saves the day.
Right? But then if you look very carefully between the lines about what you say, who was authorizing the direction of this military takeover? Who did you say authorized the direction of the military takeover?
I don't say, because I don't know.
Right. See, that's again. The question is brought up in the form of a rumor through your father.
Well, you seem to be awful anxious to cast me in the lot with conspirators, and you seem to be not that well informed on all the levels you claim to be.
Well,
so
the only problem is that I listened very carefully. And I listened very carefully when you tried to trivialize the relationship to the Trilateral, because if you look into the Trilateral Commission, for example, they set up their study groups every 9 months. Their position papers are called triangle papers. That sound a little Masonic to you? Their work products are produced in 3-year periods called trillenniums.
Okay, now just hold on. I'm not disagreeing with you. I already acknowledge that you know more about the trilaterals than I do, and yet you continually say I'm trying to trivialize it as though this is part of a conspiracy. You win. You know more than me. What do you want?
But no, the point is not whether I know more than you. The point is, why did you say when you say you don't know?
Because I'm not as well informed as you, sir, not because I'm part of some dark evil conspiracy.
Then apologize for making a conclusion about something that you
I
did not know.
apologize wholeheartedly for my ignorance. That doesn't bother me at all.
And what about the question of Christianity taking original African concepts of deity and calling them paganism?
Well, I think you're totally uninformed on that. According to all the cultist traditions, that runs as a single thread through all occult traditions. The whole thing that Osiris is the dark god. You stand on absolute sand in that remark.
No, the problem is you're now looking at the whites' reconstruction of their knowledge of. See, there's a guy named Ashwa Kwesi who does a lecture called The African Origin of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Now, I would suggest that you spend some time studying that dialogue. And if after you studied the dialogue and agreed that the concept of Christianity that you so proudly call upon your chest is a concept that was an African origin, yes or no? That's what I thought.
You're way beyond me.
I was well aware that it was. Bernie, I have done about all that I could.
Where have you been?
I was at a restaurant in Adams Morgan when the rain broke out. I turned the radio on. I rushed home in the rain to get this opportunity. I dialed the phone as many times, 20 times, just to get the opportunity. And Mr. Steele, I don't want to underestimate some things in your book that I think are good. See, we have, in our community, we study very carefully. I have sold thousands of your book. I've held a meeting in Columbus, Ohio with 500 people over your book. The question is that when these books come from the white community into the black community, Cooper, Epperson, Gary Allen, Dan Smoot, we have to translate those books into a frame that comes to understand life as we know it from an Afrocentric point of view or from a first world point of view. Therefore, there are good things in your book that I recommend that a person read, and there are other things in your book that I demand a person understand.
Well, just as from my perspective, there are good things about what you've said and things where you're obviously not as well informed as I on them.
Well, I would say this.
Hey, everybody doesn't have a lock on the truth. Everybody's got a little piece of it.
Let's just say this here. Has Christianity been used to colonize people?
Yes, that's probably true.
And if so, why wouldn't you consider that as sinister as masonry?
Well, because I'm a Christian.
I understand you're saying you are a part of the lot of perpetration. I'm now asking you, since you are in that lot, don't you think you ought to move your car?
Do the road map to move it so that I could read the road map and be convinced that I was going to the right place before I moved it, then I'd gladly do so.
Outstanding. Gentlemen.
Okay. So it says, you see where we left them off at? Yes. Okay. So maybe I am fucked up. But if you show me in advance, where's the faith now? But the point was that they then come through the black community, and we have to let them know that we're there. Now, when I talked to the white boy on the phone, he called me up. He's scared of the Masons. He think they're gonna beat him up. He was real frightened, right? But that might have been a cover. He said he wanted to meet me. I said, well, let's go down to the big white Masonic temple where Pike buried at, and I'll show you the Know Thyself chair, which they say they thought of that, and all other stuff in there. And he didn't show up. He didn't show up. He didn't show up. What's up? What time is it? Oh, shit. Damn, mother, oh my. One thing I know you for sure gonna do is keep the clock. Shit. Okay. Let me keep going here real quick. 1 minute. Gotta go real quick. 1 minute. 1 minute. Another thing I think you'll find that throughout that portion of the book, he then spends, in that chapter, the Secret Societies and New World Order, he spends time talking about Skull and Bones, the Illuminati. He again talks about the Knights of Malta. He spends a lot of time talking about the Pope. He seems to have a thing with the Pope. He's playing out the Catholic thing. And they're fighting through their little thing. He plays out heavily the Catholic thing. And he spends a lot of time talking about the Pope's role. Yeah, thanks a lot. The Pope's role in a lot of the things that he doesn't like. Here's one part I thought was important. He says, the Rockefeller family was and is, here we go, the Rockefeller family, though, huh? Shit. Yeah, go this way. Yeah, I wanted to get this into the record. He says that the Rockefeller family, though powerful, is not in control in this country or anywhere else. The real key to real power is the fact that Rockefeller had to put his feelers out at the Bilderberger Group meeting in '72 about forming a private group of trilateral leaders. The Bilderberger Group gave the nod. Rockefeller's man Brzezinski gathered up the membership and organized the trilateral in '72, not '73 as the commission claims. Actually, it was in '71 at the Brookings Institute. And then he goes on to talk about the Jason Society. And the group of Jason, saying the Jason Society was founded by the MITRE, what's that, MITRE Corporation? How you pronounce them? MITRE. Says that they formed the Jason Society to be one of the highest levels of scientific secrecy, and that there's a Jason group, a Jason Society, and the Jason Scholars. And he makes reference to all of those, talks about the CFR. Again, it brings in the CFR, the Order of the Quest. He mentions Manly Palmer Hall. He spends time talking about the majority 12. And in the discussion of majority 12, which is CFR people and wise men and so forth, he then shows that the people who make up this group that he says controls all of the activity, that actually they came from the people of the CFR and the Rockefeller people. But he doesn't add them up as the villain. He identifies them as he stretches out his discussion, but he doesn't identify, he doesn't add them up as somebody. He doesn't come to an ultimate conclusion until it goes back to Lucifer thing again. If you went out of here tomorrow and wanted to find Lucifer, you're not going to find him named Lucifer. And so he leads the enemy back to this hypothetical thing called Lucifer and a relationship with UFOs. How come UFOs don't never show up in the urban areas? How come UFOs don't show up in South Central or the ghetto or Detroit, the black community in Chicago? Why do UFO always got to go to some farm right-wing community?
Yeah.
You know, they're always in some right-wing community. They're always in a farmhouse or something.
Yeah.
Let them all come out here on Crenshaw. You know what I'm saying? How come, if it's so, in fact, why would they come down here and not stop off and see us no way?
Right.
As opposed to always showing up with some white guy. Always some white guy that's seen them. Right. Now I don't wanna get off past the thing of Elijah Muhammad and the visions and things that he saw, etc. I'm now talking back into the white boy, always coming up with some conclusion about something that only all white boys know about.
Yeah.
And we have to be careful about the dialogue. He says he has pictures.
But in the pyramids, ancestors drawed images of spaceships, so that white boy might not have even seen them. It might have been something that was relayed from our ancestors.
Right, and no question that even astrology, the science of the stars, was brought to Earth by who? Come on. Okay, so Jack, right. So we, right. Okay, Brother Omar, can I buy some time? What?
You already got 2 extra minutes, right?
Right, that's just 2 extra minutes. I need about a good 15, 20 minutes. All right, okay, we do that. Now we got, that's right. Okay, all right. Now see, now here's the thing though, the problem is that when we stop late, they have to take them longer to clean up, and they have to spend more time doing stuff than what they get paid for. I mean, if it takes 3 hours to clean up, when it's only supposed to take 1 hour to clean up, the person that cleans up 3 hours later had to be compensated in some sort of way because they end up taking more time just for us. Sometimes just us ain't enough, right? So we have to be conscious of that. We're going to do the hat passing now. So something got to be done. Brother Marcus or somebody want to do this in the meantime? While I keep talking, I got to keep talking. Okay. Oh, no, brother. I don't really care who do it. This first round is for Brother Steve and Sister. Do the best you can. I'm going to keep talking because I got it. Oh. There's another thing he said in the book that I thought was interesting. Now, in one part of the book, now, Marcus, let me teach you how to do this, right? Give him a second, right? Give him a second while they're all fixing in there, right? Now, when you stop hearing things move around and you start at one spot, you always go to the door and work back. Brother Sam, don't let nobody out the room. I'm just kidding. I wish, it's just too bad we don't have a way to stipend the scholars so that they can teach without money. It's just a whole nother level of problems we got, that we're not getting things out because we're not putting things in, and we just ain't got that squared away yet. But you all have always been very kind to me. Now, some of you all ought to be able to find it in your heart to put a penny in it. See, I can't see you sit there for 2 hours and wouldn't put a penny in it, right? Because I couldn't imagine you walk out here and go to Carl's, right, and spend $4. I ain't got no problem about that, but you might could have spent 2 there and gave me the other 2. So I could have, no, not hello, now. We don't use the devil language. That's Lucifer language, right? See, every time it slip out, sometimes it slip out. Yeah. So I just say that to you because I get my encouragement from you. Here's something interesting. Anyway, he makes a point in here saying something about Jewish people. He says the most powerful secret organization in the world is the Bilderberg Group, organized in '52. He mentions Prince Bernhard. Well, Prince Bernhard was so powerful, he got busted in the Lockheed scandal. That's how powerful he was. He got busted. He took money from the Netherlands to help Lockheed get a jet contract, and he got busted. And so my question raised is, if he's so powerful, how you get busted. Because when you're powerful, you don't get busted. You always know who ain't got no power by how long it take them to go to jail.
That's right.
Only the powerless go to jail. And it don't stay long. That's right. And it says that he's powerful, and that he says the core of the organization is 3 committees made up of 13 members each. The Heart of the Bilderberg group consists of 39 total members of the Illuminati. Now again, at different points he takes names of things and calls the Illuminati. It comes out to that conclusion where after he says and sees something, it's Illuminati. He mentions also this little part. Now it says here 13 is the mystical number assigned to Satan. Is that true?
No.
Is 13 the number of Satan?
No.
Well, why he say that? He say that right here, page 94. 13 is the mystical number assigned to Satan.
That's the white folks. Mark.
No, that was a powerful number now.
Right. That's always that. That's why the white man, it was unlucky for the white man, so he never made a 13th floor. He always avoided the number 13, where in Africa 13 is the number. Right? But the white man, he don't acknowledge the 13. I appreciate you, brother. It's on the pyramid. Right, 13's all over the money. Right. But he said, but if 13 is the devil's number, then he got the number all over it. I thought that was for the basket. He already for the basket. Come on up front there, Marcus. They'll make room for you. All over. We makes a point. Look here, right here in the book. Okay, let me do it for you. Let me do it this way. Say, right in the book, right above him saying 13 is Satan's number, he says, 13 leaves and olive branch, 13 bars and stripes, 13 arrows, 13 letters in the equilibrius unum, 13 stars on the green crest above, 13 stones in the pyramid, 13 letters in a nuit cosepius. All right? So that's what he calls 13. He does all the 13s. Now, let me say this quickly. Listen to this. He says, I hope you caught on to the fact that the secret power structure is towards a totalitarian socialist state, fascism. It is not the Nazis. They were a product of the power structure. It's not the Jews, although some wealthy Jews are involved. It's not the communists, as they fit in the same category as the Nazis. It's not the bankers, but they do play an important role. I hope that you are beginning to look inside yourself to see if there really fits. Are you getting the message? For a better understanding of secret societies and their role throughout the ages, I recommend you read the books listed as a source material at the end of the chapter. He's got Manly Palmer books and The Unseen Hand by Epperson, The New World Order by Epperson. He uses the same books that use the same language to back up his language. Okay, this chapter here, chapter 3, an oath of initiation of an unidentified secret order. A mother who states that her son took this oath and who must remain unidentified. Well, I'm always leery about that unidentified thing, right? And it's an oath of initiation. And it says that some thought it was for the Knights of Columbus, some thought it was for the Jesuits. But it does say here, it says that I will go to any part of the world whatsoever. I may be sent to the frozen regions of the north jungles of India, to the centers of civilization of Europe, or to the wild haunts of the barbarous savages of America without murmuring or repenting, and will be submissive in all things whatsoever communicated to me. It's just 2 or 3 pages of an oath. He has something here called the Secret Treaty of Verona, which he says was listed in the Congressional Record in 1916. Anything can be put in the correct Congressional Record. It is not a denotion of anything other than that a congressman or senator submitted it. It doesn't give it any credibility with the congressional record on it, like it was a record of something Congress did. It's just an insertion. They have a right to insert into the record of what they call history. And he has a dialogue in here about this treaty, which was talking about that the kings of Europe never want to give up the countries and always gave their goal to reenact monarchy. And it says that from this treaty, the Monroe Doctrine was set up. Now, what did the Monroe Doctrine do? Okay, fuck it. I don't know their history either.
American backyard.
Goodbye, USA. Hello, New World Order. Interestingly enough, Cooper says he's not against the coming of the New World Order. He says the people have to be prepped correctly, and it has to be brought in righteously to be the right New World Order. He believes that there should be a New World Order. He just disagrees slightly with how these white boys are doing it. And he goes in here. He has, now this has some interesting things. It has a discussion about balance of power. Listen to this. This is the Mason thing where it gets confused. When our forefathers wrote the Constitution of these United States, they provided safeguards against despots by providing a balance of power. The Constitution was set up to provide clear divisions of legislative, judicial, and executive powers. And I mentioned it, that's a Masonic achievement. He goes on to what the legislative does, what the representatives do, what the Supreme Court does. He says, and then he mentions one thing I think is very important in the book. It's in the chapter, Goodbye USA, Hello New World Order. He talks about the president's right to create legislation called national security directives. This is a very important section of the book. And the right of a president to declare a national security finding which authorizes the government to do certain things in the name of the protection of national security. He has the right to do it without recall or retribution. He has to show it to no one. He submits a limited knowledge version of it to the Senate Intelligence Committee and to the House Intelligence Committee, but has the right to even withhold from them. For example, Yahweh ben Yahweh is a national risk to the stability of the white race and coon job in the black people. Therefore, he writes a national security finding to get this man off of the street at all costs. It's a threat to the national security. Therefore, they don't then spend any time trying to do a legal thing about going to do something. They do anything to do that. And when it doesn't make any sense to anybody, we don't know, it may be a handwritten law laid away in the White House to be seen by no one till the revolution comes. We get to read everything when the revolution comes. But you need to understand that those things are that power. There's no oversight, whatever, and they could maintain a check of legality on these national security directives. The president, within the executive branch, has used these super secret directives to skirt the balance of power and write law without anyone's knowledge. It's a very important part of the book. He talks about different times when Congress turned their back by granting on Saturday, August 4th, 1990, the Senate granted the president the authority through the Senate Intelligence Authorization Act for the fiscal year 1991, Senate Bill 2834. That bill gave the president the authority to do certain things that had FEMA-like provisions in it of seizing everything in the name of a national emergency that could be declared by indicators known only to the president. Check. And then he mentioned certain national security directives, 77, 17, 138, on what they did, one on terrorism, allowing preemptive strikes against terrorists through 26 federal agencies. Another one, National Security Directive 77, management of public diplomacy relative to national security, allowing them to deputize certain people to do national security things. Where Reagan had private people funding the Contras. He wrote a law that allowed the private people to fund the Contras through the government, and he said he didn't know nothing about it. That's still being played out now. Deterring Cuban models, covert action in Nicaragua. Using Cuba as a model to prevent other countries from getting Cuba-like, leaving Cuba going. To use it as a model to get Maurice Bishop, to get Manley out of the Caribbean before they regroomed him and put him back in the Caribbean. To destabilize Nicaragua, to destabilize Panama. It was a national security directive entitled Deterring Cuban Models. Safeguarding national security information about how every government employee was then forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. That's a very powerful thing. Directives that allow training. He mentions one thing here that FEMA could possibly pick people up on Thanksgiving night. He mentions a point. Interestingly enough, they shot Kennedy around Thanksgiving. They also, what was in it? How much? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, now this, we passing this around for the good life, right? Because we want the good life to be able to have a little extra money to do something with, to take care of the people who have to work longer because we're here. And we're going to pass this around. And I appreciate Sister Janie and Sister Phil. And we're trying to work ourselves out. It takes a lot for me to get here and to get everything done. This is from when I leave you, I start on the next one. You don't know how absorbing this is to go through everything just to draw something back out. So we're all stretching ourselves, and it take a little extra from them, a little extra from me, a little extra for you to hang through it. So we want to make sure we compensate them for this extra little time. Now, also as mentioned here, it mentions one thing, that some of the national security directives were written in handwritten. He also mentioned that some of those showed that Reagan's signature had not been signed by Reagan, but signed by the signature machine. Having worked for a mayor, I know how to get the mayor's signature on a document that he never seen. You just go into the closet and you put it on the signature machine, where you sign those thousands of letters that redo his signature. It's a little roving pen on a little, it's on a little levy, and it just writes that signature as it goes down the little levy. And anytime you want to do something and the mayor didn't see it, you just take it in the signature machine, let him sign it up, and then you say, look, he signed it. So they found out that some of the directors, in fact, had not been signed by the president, by Reagan. And you saw Reagan, like I said, you seen Reagan last night, you can see that he's still asleep. He's still asleep. But he mentions that he warns his friends not to be home at Thanksgiving. He said that FEMA's most likely plan is to pick you up during Thanksgiving. Harold Washington was killed right the day before Thanksgiving. Kennedy was killed right before Thanksgiving. So look into that Thanksgiving thing. He warns all his friends, never be home at Thanksgiving. He has a chapter that deals with FEMA. I think it's not a bad chapter. It deals with the executive orders. Many people have duplicated the same information, the LaRoche's, the Christian Institute. There are many books that deal with the FEMA question. He looks at all the executive orders that Nixon combined together, how Ford combined them together, what Carter did, and what Samuel Huntington did as a member of Carter's cabinet in terms of advancing the FEMA situation. And it mentions that he doesn't like the FEMA thing because it suspends the Constitution, and he is a lover of the Constitution. And so we keep coming up with his love of the Constitution. Yes, quickly.
Yeah, you know, they had the FEMA commercials coming on out here now.
What?
Yeah, they air them right after the Farcon on KGFJ. They specifically talk about containment for community security.
Ooh. Ooh, we got to get that on tape. Is that radio we talking about? We got to get that on tape. Just anybody. Don't forget we'll be back here Saturday. Try to come in a little early on Saturday. I'm going to try to be here early enough that we can get a couple of good hours in. We just got to get some more time in. And y'all know I come late, so y'all go 6:30. Okay.
You tell everybody to be here at 5.
Look here. If they get here at 5, they should be full of your food by the time I get here. Right. That means they'd probably be asleep because it'd be so good. They'd be all full and stuff, right? Okay. Right. I don't know what you said, but it must have been right. Is this your place? And I'm in it. 6 minutes. That's what it says, Shakur. 6 o'clock. What time y'all gonna get here Saturday? Y'all gonna come here Saturday? How many y'all gonna come here Saturday?
5.
Okay. Look, now we ain't got no flyer out there, so you got to go get some more people and bring them in. That's the only way it works. You got to get the people. I can't get them. You're gonna have to get them, right? And I ain't getting much sleep these days. I was up 2, 3, 4 o'clock this morning. I slept from 6 to 8, and I've been up all day, all night, because the baby be sleeping when I be asleep. Baby awake when I be sleeping. Baby be trying to be awake when I be trying to sleep. So I don't know if I said it right. I'm just that sleepy.
So what time can I tell folks that you can?
We will start the lecture Saturday at 7:15. We'll start the lecture at 7:15 on Saturday. Okay? Right, and it's going to be more on the intelligence community and the future of the spy thing. Okay. Now y'all finish counting the money over there, right? Yeah. I see Janie all woke all of a sudden. Over there singing. Okay, now. So look at this chapter on FEMA. It has some value in it. He's talking about how FEMA could eliminate the 4th and 8th Amendment and how he's concerned about those things, but his love is the love of the Constitution. The next chapter, quickly, is a chapter that I'm not going to talk about at all. He reprints something from a friend of his about FEMA, what it would be like to have the pickup of the people. And it's in little bitty print. And it has some interesting things on it. It got some knucklehead stuff on it. It talks about the LEAA when it was going on, the planning of a police state. Has some interesting things in it. It's very tedious. It's hard. You know, I use a book. I don't read a book. I use a book. And so when I have to read the whole book, it really hurts me because most books aren't worth reading all of it up. And so it hurted me to have to, y'all know what hurt, to have to read it all because it all wasn't worthy of being read. Now, he talks about the Anti-Drug Act of '88, but he's vague about what stayed in and what went out. Covert Action did a better job of talking about the impediments of the Anti-Drug Act of '88. I mentioned in the attack on rap and other black youth. There's a lot more detailed sketches of what it does, but in terms of drug testing, mass searches, school locker searches, warrantless searches, he is correct in sounding the alarm that the Anti-Drug Act does impede certain freedoms. He then does a small 2-page chapter from a test case in Oklahoma that required all Oklahoma residents to declare everything they own to a tax collector. Everything. Guns, coins, art collections, furniture, business equipment, bank accounts, household furniture, etc. Forms will be distributed through the bank. Any taxpayer who fails to fill out a form and submit it to the tax assessor by March 15th could be prosecuted with penalties up to 20%. He says it is not time for rebellion, it is time for restoration. The Constitution must again be restored as it once was, the supreme law of the land. And that's his conclusion to that impediment of the Constitution, that the Constitution must be restored. This is one interesting line in here I'm glad I didn't get a chance to miss. He makes a point. He says he's against the one group scenarios, which is correct. It isn't all the Jews. It isn't all the Masons. It isn't all the WASP or all just the Zionists. It's a cooperative agreement between all of them. He speaks against, in this chapter called An Anatomy of an Alliance, the logic for the New World Order, the glue that binds the alliance together, and consequences. He makes a point of saying that he's against the one group scenario, except for the Illuminati. It says right there, except for the Illuminati, which that's the one group scenario. He'll go for that as a one group analysis of all of the things I say you can't trace under that name. It's been used effectively to divert your attention away from the truth. It has caused you to fight each other over each other in the manipulation of who always leads the real conspiracy, or closer to the ultimate goal of a new world order. Those of you who believe that Hitler was financed by Jews so that he could murder Jews has a serious logic deficit. Period. That's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. Because a book written by a Jewish person, The Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black, and Zionism in the Age of Dictators by Lenny Brenner, and Jews in America Today by Lenny Brenner will show you that it was a ploy of the Zionist community to give Hitler money, to build Hitler up, to make Hitler a threat great enough to get them a state. And they got it. Only after the war, which he precipitated. Only after the ADL and the American Jewish Committee gave him, American Jewish Congress rather, gave him $1 million for a PR campaign in '39 that made him known throughout the land to put him in a position to do what he did, and $1 million in '39 is about 30 million now, and due to inflation and so forth. So they did build him, but he fights. He does a pretty good job of not putting the Jewish people too deep into this. But then later on, he runs a full copy of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Sion, which he calls it Sion, S-I-O-N. And I don't know why is it Sion instead of Zion. And he says that the real, now, how you do, Brother Omar? All right, okay. Good, because a tax collector in the house. I don't like to tell mine either. All right, check. Check. Never get so excited you tell how much you made.
That's right. Check.
It isn't that you're hiding nothing, but who else need to know?
Check.
Okay, now Osafu got 1 minute, so the video gonna run a little short. Okay, now, so we be conscious of that. In his alliance, he talks about the Shah of Iran. He says that the reason the Shah lost is to say he makes a point.